3:30 a.m. I woke up from a coma to see my wife crying beside my hospital bed, but it wasn't grief. She was panicking because the ATM had swallowed her card while she was trying to withdraw money. The harsh white lights of the hospital room illuminated Emily's face, revealing tears not of sadness, but of fear. What she didn't know was that I'd already woken up 2 hours earlier and overheard the phone call she thought she had made in secret. That call changed everything. The sharp scent of disinfectant mixed with the steady hiss of the oxygen machine beside me. What truly brought me back to full consciousness was the familiar click of high heels echoing through the hospital hallway. Emily had stepped out, assuming I was still asleep. "Jake, I've transferred the full $35,000. Now we just need him to sign the divorce papers," she said. Her voice carried into the room, soft, almost gentle, but as cold as ice. $35,000. That number hit me like a punch to the gut. It was everything we'd saved over the last 12 years of working nonstop. Every penny from my first paycheck as a junior analyst to the Christmas bonuses I never spent. I remember the joy when our account first hit $5,000, then $10,000, and finally 6 figures. We used to sit side by side, dreaming about the future, vacations, a house, kids. On our wedding day, Emily gave me a watch engraved with "Forever Yours, Emily." I was still wearing it, even in that hospital bed. But now those words felt like knives. My heart slowed, my hands trembled uncontrollably. It felt like someone had poured ice water into my veins. The hum of the hospital AC suddenly sounded like a jet engine. Every noise around me amplified. The nurse's footsteps down the hallway, the wheezing of the patient next door, even the rustling leaves outside the window. "Yeah, I know. Don't worry. He doesn't suspect a thing. He trusts me completely," Emily whispered on the phone. "Today's Tuesday. I'll have everything wrapped up this week." I quickly closed my eyes and pretended to sleep when I heard her footsteps approaching again. Through a barely open eyelid, I saw her sit back down next to me and check something on her phone. The screen lit up her face, and in that glow, I saw a cold, calculating look I'd never seen before in the woman I'd spent 10 years loving. That was when it hit me, why she insisted on becoming the authorized user on our joint bank account when I was admitted. Emily and I met 15 years ago on a rainy afternoon in our college library. She was sitting alone, long hair covering half her face, scribbling equations in a worn notebook. I was drawn to her right away, the way she bit her pen cap when deep in thought. We'd been married for a decade, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. I remembered proposing to her under the lights of Lakeview Park. We cried and laughed as she said yes, wrapped in each other's arms. Emily had said, "All I want is a quiet life with you." How could I have known that in her mind? Quiet meant a life without me. My name is Ethan. I'm 38 years old and a fraud detection analyst at a major US bank. Every day, I sit in front of a computer tracing suspicious transactions, flagging financial schemes, and identifying criminal activity. I have access to core banking systems and know how to dig into every transfer down to the last cent. My skills helped uncover dozens of high-level fraud cases, but I never imagined I'd need to use them on my own wife. My colleagues used to call me the bank detective because of my ability to spot even the most subtle red flags. I used to take pride in that title. Now I had become a victim of the very criminals I used to chase. Jake, my so-called best friend, was even the best man at our wedding. In recent years, he'd worked as a real estate agent, always struggling financially. I'd helped him many times, interest-free loans, co-signing a mortgage, covering bills. I trusted him like a brother. What I didn't know was, they had a history. Mr. Miller, an elderly neighbor from our old apartment complex, once told me he lost $9,000 in a shady investment Jake had pitched to him. Emily had been present at that pitch. Back then, I'd brushed it off as a misunderstanding. I defended them both. But now I realized it might have been their first test run. I had truly loved Emily. We bought a small house in the suburbs, started a savings account for our future children, and even dreamed of retiring early and traveling together. I remembered all the nights we spent calculating our budget, dreaming about a family with 2 kids. Emily often said, "Ethan, I want a little beach house to grow old in with you." Now those words rang cruel and hollow. I should have seen it coming. I worked with fraud every day. How could I not notice I was being conned by the person I trusted the most? Lying in that hospital bed, I started piecing it all together. 3 warning signs I'd ignored. The first sign came 3 months ago. Emily suddenly insisted on becoming the authorized user on our joint bank account. Her reason, just in case something happens to you, she claimed she'd read about a friend's husband who had an accident, and the wife couldn't access funds because her name wasn't on the account. Back then, I took it as a sweet, responsible gesture. I even signed the paperwork that day, feeling lucky to have a thoughtful wife. I was blind. The second sign showed up 6 weeks ago, and it was clearer. Emily started asking questions about my life insurance. Who would get the money if I died? How much would they receive? She even suggested I increase the coverage just to be safe. One evening, I caught her Googling motorcycle accident fatality statistics in San Diego and risk projections at intersections. When I asked, she smiled and said she was just worried about family safety. I believed her. I thought she cared. In reality, she was calculating the odds. The third and most chilling sign came 2 weeks before the crash. Jake, my supposed best friend, took an unusual interest in my daily schedule. He asked about my new commute route, suggested I switch from my motorcycle to a car for safety. He even warned me to avoid the intersection at Main and 5th during rush hour because it was especially dangerous. The crash happened exactly at that intersection, exactly during rush hour. When I finally connected these dots, I saw the entire picture. This was a plan, a well-thought-out operation. They had covered every angle, from legal access to our funds to staging a traffic accident. I'd lived in the illusion of a happy marriage, but to them, I was nothing more than a target, a payday. The morning after I overheard Emily's phone call, I used my phone to check our bank account. What I saw made me want to scream, but no sound came out. Balance, $0, $35,000. Gone. I checked the transaction history, 3 consecutive transfers in the last 2 days. $11,000, $11,500, and $12,500, all to an account I didn't recognize. They were smart. Each transfer was under $15,000, just low enough to avoid triggering the bank's fraud alerts. As if fate hadn't already kicked me enough, my phone rang. It was HR from my company. "Ethan," the voice was sympathetic, "we're truly sorry about your accident. But per company policy, we can't keep an employee on long-term leave. We'll provide 3 months of severance." Just like that, the identity I'd spent years building, the bank detective, was gone. I'd been the guy everyone went to for advice on safeguarding their finances. Now I was a cautionary tale. Then came the doctor's update. Fractured ribs, minor head trauma, and at least 3 months of recovery. My motorcycle was totaled, and insurance would only cover 30% of its value. There was no proof of third-party fault. But none of that hurt as much as the isolation. Friends stopped visiting. Emily told them I'd gone paranoid after the accident. Some even believed her. My relatives, too, began to pull away. My own mother called, her voice laced with concern. "Honey, are you really okay?" Emily said. "Well, she said you've been imagining things." My phone was filled with transaction notifications from the bank, but no messages from friends. No one asking how I was. It was like I'd become toxic, radioactive, untouchable. The bleach-scented hospital air turned suffocating. The hum of the oxygen machine, the crying patient in the next room, the blinding white lights overhead, it all felt like an interrogation chamber. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, I realized something. I had nothing left to lose, and that's when I became dangerous. 4 a.m., the hospital was dead silent. Only the soft beeping of the monitors and the occasional footsteps of the night nurse echoed through the halls. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was calm, the kind of calm that only comes when you've lost everything. I started thinking methodically, just like I did when dissecting a fraud case at the bank. Step 1. I needed evidence. I thought of Michael, a financial attorney I'd known for over a decade. When he first opened his practice, I lent him $10,000 interest-free so he could get started. I hadn't asked for anything in return until now. Step 2. I needed tools. My old laptop still had access credentials to some of the bank's internal systems. It hadn't revoked them yet. I also had a USB drive full of backup data from past cases. I used it for work, but now it would help me build a case of my own. My greatest weapon, experience. 12 years of chasing scammers had taught me exactly how they hide tracks, when they slip up, and which legal traps they always forget to avoid. I knew the law. And more importantly, I knew how to use it. I started observing Emily during her visits. She played the loving wife flawlessly, bringing soup, sitting at my side, even shedding tears as she talked about our uncertain future. But her eyes betrayed her. They were calculating, tense, tired from keeping up the act. I wrote down every strange detail. How often she checked her phone, the way she glanced at the wall clock, her comments about my finances that she shouldn't have known unless she'd been tracking them herself. I had one goal now. Don't confront, don't accuse, don't get emotional. Let them expose themselves. Greed and overconfidence always led to mistakes. By 5:30 the next morning, my investigation had officially begun. I logged into the banking system and traced every transaction from the past 6 months. What I found shook me. Emily had been doing test transfers 2 months ago, sending $2,000 to a suspicious account and transferring it back 3 days later. When I'd asked about it, she claimed it was a mistake and that thankfully, the recipient was honest enough to return it. Now I realized it was a test, to see if I noticed, to see if the bank would flag it. At 8 a.m., I called Michael. "Hey Mike, I'm in the hospital and I need your legal expertise. It's serious. Can you come?" I kept my voice steady, but Michael could hear the urgency. By 10:30 a.m., he was at my bedside. After I laid out everything, he didn't hesitate. "We need to document everything legally. I'll bring audio equipment, guide you through proper recording laws, and help you build a solid case. If you're right," he said, "we're looking at multiple charges, fraud, intentional injury, even attempted murder." That evening, Michael returned with a disguised recording device hidden inside a pillbox. It could record 72 hours of audio in high quality and was fully legal since it was my property and used in my personal space. That night, I tested it by leaving it near Emily's phone as she called her mother. What I heard chilled me to the core. "Mom, it's almost over," Emily whispered. "I'm about to get the money, don't worry. At least 2, maybe 300,000. Enough to buy you that dream house in the country." Her mom replied, "But what about Ethan? Are you sure he'll split it with you?" Emily chuckled coldly. "Don't worry about him. After everything that's happened, he won't be in any position to stop anything." I knew I needed one more thing, a full confession, a smoking gun. And to get it, I had to push them hard. The next morning, I initiated the final phase of my plan. I had to make them feel like they were running out of time, like their window to act was closing. When Emily arrived at the hospital, I greeted her calmly, even warmly. "Babe," I said with a steady voice, "I've been thinking. We should reorganize our finances, in case something happens again." Her smile wavered. "Why are you saying that?" "This accident, it made me realize how unpredictable life is. I want to make sure you and the family are protected. I've scheduled a meeting at the bank, a full review of everything with a lawyer present, just to be safe." I stared directly into her eyes. "It's in 48 hours. Can you make it?" She hesitated, then nodded. That night, I asked Michael to call me while Emily was in the room. "Ethan," he said, loud enough for her to hear, "the bank's starting an internal investigation into some unusual activity on your joint account. If they find anything, they may freeze the funds for 72 hours. Emily's hands tensed. She didn't say a word, but the look in her eyes screamed panic. Minutes later, she stepped out and made a phone call. I didn't need to hear it. I knew she was calling Jake. To crank up the pressure, I left my life insurance paperwork on the desk completely visible. Sure enough, while I pretended to sleep, Emily pulled out her phone and took photos of every page, focusing in on the payout amount and the listed beneficiary. Then came the final push. "I'm being discharged in 24 hours, I told her that night. "The doctor said I can go home. I need to get things in order. Review our accounts. Make some decisions about the future." That was the moment I knew they'd make their move. If they did nothing, I'd catch them red-handed at the bank. If they acted, they'd make a mistake. Either wide win. Monday, 10 a.m., Conference Room 3. First American Bank, Midtown Branch, glass walls, security cameras. Audio recording standard procedure for high-security meetings. Present me, Emily, Attorney Michael, the bank's senior financial advisor, and Jake. The meeting was framed as a discussion about financial restructuring after my accident. I began calmly. "Thanks for coming. There are a few things I need to clarify, starting with our recent account activity. I plugged my laptop into the screen. Let's review 3 transactions: $11,000, $11,500, and $12,500, all within 48 hours, all to the same unknown account. Jake turned pale. His hands trembled. I looked at Emily. "Can you explain these?" Jake's voice cracked before she could answer. She said it was just a temporary loan to me. That was the first twist I hadn't expected. Jake broke. He couldn't handle the pressure. I stayed composed. Let's look at a few more things. Click. I played the first recording, the one where Emily told Jake, "All we need now is for him to sign the divorce papers." Jake collapsed into the chair. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I just needed money to pay off debt." I stared at him coldly. To pay off debt? Or to buy a $60,000 beach house in San Diego, like you told Emily? Or maybe the $6,000 you conned from Mrs. Walters in that fake investment scam? Now, Emily went quiet. Dead quiet. She hadn't expected I knew about their previous scams. Jake shook his head, stammering. "You have no proof that audio could be fake." I smiled. "You're right. Audio can be disputed." Click. "But can you explain this?" I displayed a traffic cam photo on the screen, time-stamped, crystal clear. Jake standing at the intersection of Main and 5th, 15 minutes before my accident, holding his phone. Watching the street I was riding down, he broke down completely. "I'm sorry, man. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you like that. It was just supposed to be a minor crash. Just a few days in the hospital so Emily could move the money without you noticing." "And your relationship with Emily?" I asked. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've loved her for years. Even before you two got married, she told me she was unhappy. She wanted a new life." "Jake, shut up," Emily shouted, her face white as paper. But Jake had already lost control. "She said if we had the money, we could disappear, start fresh. She said you didn't deserve it, saving every penny, never enjoying life." I turned to Emily. "Is that true?" She tried to keep calm. "You can't prove anything. That's just Jake talking." "Oh, but I can." Click final recording. Emily's voice crystal clear. "Don't worry about Ethan. After everything that's happened, he won't be able to stop us." The room went silent. Emily slumped into her chair. The mask she'd worn for so long shattered. She broke into sobs. I stood slowly, voice quiet but firm. "You have 24 hours to turn yourselves in to the police. If you don't, I'll deliver this entire file to the district attorney's office, complete with financial records, audio, photos, and traffic cam footage, including evidence of attempted murder for financial gain." March 15th, exactly 22 hours after our showdown at the bank. Emily and Jake turned themselves in at the Central District Police Department. They couldn't handle the pressure. They knew I had enough to bury them. The investigation moved fast. I'd handed over a meticulously prepared file. Bank statements, recorded calls, metadata from Emily's photos, even the traffic cam footage that placed Jake at the crash site. On May 10th, the Superior Court of San Diego handed down the verdict. Emily was sentenced to 7 years in prison for grand larceny and conspiracy to commit bodily harm. The court emphasized the severity of the betrayal, using a position of marital trust to orchestrate financial and physical harm. Jake received 5 years as an accomplice to fraud and for failing to report a planned felony. He avoided a longer sentence due to his full confession and cooperation. Mrs. Walters, the 60-year-old widow they'd scammed the year before, was granted restitution. When I saw her after the trial, she grabbed my hands, crying. "Because of you," she whispered, "I can finally afford my husband's medication again. I thought the money was gone forever." As for restitution in my case, the court ordered Emily to repay the full $35,000 she stole, along with $8,000 in punitive interest. Jake was ordered to sell his home and pay an additional $12,000 for emotional damages and lost wages. Total restitution, $55,000, 1.6x the original amount stolen. Every penny was recovered. Emily's assets, including a property she had signed over to her mother, were frozen. Jake's beach house plans, gone. He moved into a tiny studio apartment outside the city. I'll never forget the look on their faces when the sentence was read. Emily fainted in the courtroom. Jake wrote me a 3-page apology letter and mailed it to the hospital. I never opened it. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. The story made headlines in the San Diego Legal Tribune under the headline, "Bank Analyst Outsmarts His Own Wife and Best Friend in $35,000 Conspiracy Plot." It became a case study in financial fraud within families. People began reaching out, emails, SMS, letters, strangers with similar stories, asking for help or simply to be heard. On March 20th, I was officially discharged from the hospital, fully recovered. My former company offered me a promotion to Assistant Director of Fraud Risk. But I had other plans. 6 months later, I moved to Lakeview, Oregon. I rented a small house by the lake, waking up each morning to birdsong and the scent of pine. With the restitution money, I founded my own financial fraud consulting agency. My first client, a 55-year-old business owner whose wife and brother had swindled him out of $90,000. Using my expertise, I helped him recover nearly 80% of it. In November, I hosted a community workshop titled Protecting Your Family's Finances from Fraud. At the Lakeview Civic Center, we planned for 100 attendees. Over 400 showed up. Mrs. Walters even flew in to speak. She cried while sharing her story. Thanks to Ethan, I didn't just get my money back. I got my dignity back. My lifestyle is different now. I wake up at 5:30, go for a jog around the lake, read, work with clients I choose. No stress, no paranoia, just clarity. Most importantly, I've learned to trust myself again. Happiness no longer depends on anyone else. It comes from purpose. Last month, I started dating again. Her name is Rachel, 34, an independent attorney, smart, genuine. We're taking it slow. We both understand what trust really means. I now spend 2 evenings a week offering free fraud consultation to vulnerable individuals, retirees, single parents, people who've been burned by those closest to them. I've learned something powerful. Greed doesn't just destroy the greedy, it makes them reckless. But patience, discipline, and knowledge, those win in the end. And on a crisp October morning, as I sipped coffee on my porch and watched the sunrise over the lake, I heard children laughing in the yard next door. Peace, warmth, life. Sometimes losing everything is how you finally find yourself.